So, a feminist just made the worst argument of all time. President Donald Trump is back at war with LeVar Ball, and he finally has comments on Roy Moore. Plus, Thanksgiving is coming up, and we will go through the Thanksgiving mailbag. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. So because it is a shortened week, we will have the opportunity to do the mailbag for you. So that's why you need to be a subscriber right now, because that means you get to be part of the live mailbag today. But before we get to any of the myriad news items that are on the table on this, the day before Thanksgiving, and we have a lot to be thankful for. I mean, Hillary Clinton isn't the president. Judge Gorsuch, Donald Trump continues to tweet, like lots of things for us here at the Ben Shapiro Show to be thankful for. But before we get to any of those things, first I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Dollar Shave Club. So you've heard me talk before about how the Dollar Shave Club razors, which I use under my chinny chin chin for Jewish ritual reasons, why the razors are just fantastic. Well, now they have Dr. Carver's shave butter, which is terrific, and there are even more Dollar Shave Club products that I've added to my daily routines. They make products for your hair, your face, your skin, the shower. It's all their own original stuff. They only use the finest premium ingredients. They deliver it to you just like they do their razors. So no more having to go to the market and decide what soap to get. Instead, they will deliver you the body wash directly to your door. It smells really good, by the way. I want you to love Dollar Shave Club as much as I do, so I have arranged for you to try your first month of their best razor, along with travel-sized versions of their shave butter body cleanser, and yes, even the fabled and famed butt wipes for just $5. After that, replacement cartridges shipped for just a few bucks a month, so you're not stuck in your house with a dull razor when the news gets bad. Instead, you have the sharpest razors available from our friends over at Dollar Shave Club, plus all of their other goodies. It is the Dollar Shave Club starter set. Get yours for just $5 exclusively at the dollarshaveclub.com/Ben. That's dollarshaveclub.com/Ben, dollarshaveclub.com/Ben. And again, you get that travel-sized version for just $5, and then after that, replacement cartridge shipping for just a few bucks a month. So awesome service. Everyone is talking about Dollar Shave Club for a reason. Okay, so a lot of news to get to today. I feel like starting on an up note because, come on, vacation is about to start. In Los Angeles, we're never going to escape. It's basically the zombie apocalypse out there. You get on the freeways, and it looks like the road out of Atlanta in the poster from The Walking Dead. Like, it's just a bunch of people who have their desiccated corpses kind of hung over their steering wheels because no one can get out of the city. But everyone is happy because it's Thanksgiving Day, and in that mode, I think that it is time for us to bring back our newest, and for the moment, our favorite segment of the Ben Shapiro Show. Of course, I refer to none other than Eloquent Trump. Ah, yes, Eloquent Trump. Yeah, we used to have good Trump and bad Trump. Now we just have Eloquent Trump because some things are beyond good and evil, as Nietzsche would say. And therefore, in the mode of Nietzsche, we look at the rhetoric. Is it Apollonian? Is it Dionysian? Now, President Trump, familiar with all of these terms, of course. So today, he tweeted out at LeVar Ball. And LeVar Ball, as you know, is a dummy. So LeVar Ball, as we have said, is the father of LiAngelo Ball, who's a UCLA basketball player who's arrested in China for shoplifting. And LeVar Ball has said he will not say thank you to President Trump because he's a dolt. President Trump feels that it is absolutely of necessity that he tweet back at LeVar Ball so we can have this clash of the intellectual titans. So here is what he tweeted today. He's just not going to let this thing go. Yeah, I gotta tell you, when I was a kid and I had my bar mitzvah, got lots of money, got lots of presents, and one of the things that my mother said is that you have to write thank you notes to every person who gave you a present. There was nothing I hated in life more than writing those thank you notes. I despised it. It was terrible because she insisted that I handwrite every one of them. I couldn't just send like a group email. I then had to personalize it and say, thank you so much for this useless gift that I will never use. Signed, Ben, and can't wait to see you. It took me months to write those thank you notes. So I have a particular place in my heart that despises people who sit around at their mailbox and wait for the thank you note. And there were those people, okay? There were people who legitimately would call up my grandmother and they'd be like, I gave the gift and I never received a thank you note. It's like, the hell's wrong with you? Like, who cares whether you received a thank you note or not? I thought that the joy of giving was actually the giving, not the receipt of the useless thank you note that will end up in your garbage after I spend money on the postage. President Trump, I have to say, he's got the feel of a guy who gives a gift and then sits around for 3 months waiting for the thank you note and then calls my grandmother, because here is what he just tweeted. Quote, yeah, it's so eloquent. It wasn't the White House. It wasn't the State Department. It wasn't Father LeVar's so-called people on the ground in China that got his son out of long-term prison sentence. It was me. Too bad. LeVar is just a poor man's version of Don King, but without the hair. Yeah, it's a funny line. Just think. And then he continues. along these lines. LeVar, you could have spent the next 5 to 10 years during Thanksgiving with your son in China, but no NBA contract to support you. But remember, LeVar, shoplifting is not a little thing. It's really a big deal, especially in China. Ungrateful fool. I pity the fool. So President Trump really going full out this morning at 2:33 a.m. Pacific time. So he was up early on the East Coast, and something about that not receiving the thank you note from LeVar Ball has really bothered him. Now, two things can be true at once. LeVar Ball can be Don King without the hair, and also the President of the United States probably has better things to do, I would think, than tweeting about LeVar Ball. But no, I do have to say there's something really hilarious about the fact that he called him Don King without hair. You know who campaigned for Donald Trump, right? Don King. You remember that? Like, it happened during the campaign. And it was a big deal because people were saying Don King is like a convicted murderer, which he is. So it was like a big deal during the campaign. But now LeVar Ball is Don King. Oh, you gotta love it. This is America now, man. It's a reality TV show. And the eloquence is just spectacular. So this has been Eloquent Trump. Thank you for that. Just spectacular job, Mr. President. Okay, so in other news, sometimes you have to start with the fun stuff. In other news, President Trump has finally commented on Roy Moore. So after weeks of basically keeping silent on Roy Moore, the Senate Republican Alabama candidate who has been credibly accused of child molestation or of ephebophilia. He was trying to hit on and have sex with 14 and 16-year-old girls when he was in his 30s. The allegations are credible. I keep getting mail from people saying, how do you know the allegations are credible? Because I have a simple rule of thumb. If these same allegations with supporting evidence were made about a Democrat, I would be very upset. They are made about a Republican, I am similarly upset. This is what it's like to have a simple standard. Okay, it's not that I would have let Bill Clinton off the hook with this stuff. I wouldn't have let him off the hook. That's the point. Now, as to how you vote in the Alabama Senate race, as I've said, I would stay home. I would not vote for a credibly alleged child molester, but I would certainly not vote for Doug Jones' opponent, because Doug Jones' opponent is a disaster area. I think that what President Trump does well is he crystallizes what the conflict is in the Republican Party and why it is that the Republican Party needs to look beyond this particular election if they actually hope to win future elections. So President Trump was asked specifically about Roy Moore, and he defends Roy Moore, and he basically makes 2 points. Here are his 2 points.
I can tell you one thing for sure. We don't need a liberal person in there, a Democrat. Jones, I've looked at his record. It's terrible in crime. It's terrible in the border. It's terrible in the military. I can tell you for a fact, we do not need somebody that's going to be bad on crime, bad on borders, bad with the military, bad for the Second Amendment.
Is an accused child molester better than a Democrat? Is an accused
well, he
child
denies it.
molester better
Look,
than
he
a
denies it. I mean, if you look at what is really going on, and you look at all the things that have happened over the last 48 hours, he totally denies it. He says it didn't happen. And, you know, you have to listen to him also. You're talking about, he said 40 years ago this did not happen. So, you know.
Okay, so he's making 2 arguments here. Okay, argument number 1 is an argument that, as we would say in law school, is an argument that proves too much. It's too broad. So he basically says that Doug Jones is a liberal Democrat. We don't need a liberal Democrat in the Senate. I, of course, completely agree. I do not want more liberal Democrats in the Senate. I don't want people like Doug Jones in the Senate. Here is Doug Jones talking yesterday about his perspective on abortion. He is a radical on abortion. This would be clip 3, if we can grab that. Here is Doug Jones being asked on national television about his perspective on abortion. Not a particularly impressive candidate. Here he is.
I am a firm believer that a woman should have the freedom to choose what happens to her own body. And I'm going to stand up for that, and I'm going to make sure that that continues to happen. I want to make sure that as we go forward, people have access to contraception, they have access to the abortion that they might need, if that's what they choose to do. I think that that's going to be an issue that we can work with and talk to people about from both sides of the aisle. It's one of those
issues. But you wouldn't
issues
legislate, so you wouldn't be in favor of legislation that said ban abortion after 20 weeks or something like that?
Now, I'm not in favor of anything that is going to infringe on a woman's right and her freedom to choose. That's just the position that I've had for many years. It's the position I continue to have. But when those people, I want to make sure people understand that once a baby is born, I'm going to be there for that child. That's where I become a right to lifer.
Okay, so he becomes a right to life for after they're born, but before they're born, he's a right to deather. So that's exciting. So Doug Jones is indeed very, very radical on this. He's way too radical for the state of Alabama. Now, here is the problem. President Trump makes an argument, and he says, we don't need people like Doug Jones in the Senate. Therefore, you should vote for Roy Moore. Here's my problem with this argument. This is an argument, as we say, that proves too much because, you could presumably have an actual murderer running for Senate against Doug Jones, and Trump would then say, okay, so he's a genocidal murderer. Hitler is running against Doug Jones, but at least Hitler has the right votes on tax cuts. At some point, you got to draw the line, I would imagine. And that's why President Trump is actually hesitant to just say, well, make the full David Horowitz argument. I've mentioned the David Horowitz argument before. David's very extreme on this, and he basically makes the argument that I just stated. It's fine if it's Stalin, so long as Stalin votes my way. Trump shies away from that. Trump says, well, he denies it. He denies it. That's a convenient way of escaping this particular debacle, that he denies it. I do have to say there's a bit of hypocrisy to how President Trump uses the "he denies it" line. Trump says the same thing about Vladimir Putin, being involved in the hacking of the DNC. He says he denies it. He denies it. So on the stuff where Trump is credulous, the stuff that he believes, it's always the stuff that he personally agrees with. So Rafael Cruz shot JFK, right? Ted Cruz's dad shot JFK. The National Enquirer is a perfectly believable publication. They should win Pulitzers. A lot of people are saying, a lot of people, a lot. Right? A lot of people are saying stuff. And then all of a sudden we're supposed to give it credence, right? A lot of people, I have been told by sources, the birth certificate is a fraud, right? On that stuff, President Trump is incredibly credulous. But when it comes to the allegations against Roy Moore, then it's Moore denies it. So what are we supposed to do? I think that is Trump attempting to avoid the horns of a dilemma. The reason that Trump is doing this is, number one, because I think that he has a gut-level response to the media piling on anybody that he perceives on his side of the aisle. He thinks that those pile-ons are politically motivated, as they very much are. So he's not wrong about that. The other thing is that Trump benefits politically from backing Roy Moore. If he were to throw Roy Moore over, people are saying it's an act of bravery for him to stand by Roy Moore. No, it's actually an act of political cowardice for a couple of reasons. Number one, the real benefit for Trump is if he stands by Moore. Why? Because he already lost to Roy Moore in the primary. He backed Luther Strange, and then Roy Moore won. And so if Trump loses again, if he does not back Roy Moore, let's say he doesn't back Roy Moore and Roy Moore wins, then it's Trump has no impact on these races, right? Trump is useless. And if he doesn't back Roy Moore and Roy Moore loses, then a lot of his base, led by people like Steve Bannon, are going to blame Trump and say that he's been co-opted by McConnell. So Trump isn't going to play that game. He's going to back Roy Moore. If Roy Moore loses, then Trump is going to say, well, he lost because he was a child molester. And if Roy Moore wins, Trump is going to say, well, he won because I stood up for him against Doug Jones. So politically speaking, that's why Trump is doing what he's doing. As far as the payoff here, let's put aside the moral argument. I guess the moral argument is relevant here. So there are a lot of people who are saying, okay, you back Roy Moore because Doug Jones is an abortion fanatic, right? We're about the policy. We don't want another vote for abortion. We don't want another vote against a good Supreme Court candidate. So you got to back Roy Moore no matter how bad Roy Moore is. This is a moral argument that the ends justify the means. Here's the problem. I don't think that in the long run, the ends are going to justify the means. I don't think you're going to reach your ends. Here's my evidence. Back in 2006, the Republican Party was running well behind the Democrats in the congressional generic ballot. They were running anywhere from 8 to 10 points behind the Democrats in the congressional generic ballot. Then come late September, September 2006, there was a scandal that broke. Mark Foley was a Republican congressperson from Florida who'd been closeted, he was gay, and he'd been having sex with one of the congressional pages. And this congressional page revealed that information. And it turned out that the Republican leadership in the House had known about this for a couple of months and had basically kept it quiet. And when this broke, suddenly that D+8 jumped up to D+20. You can go back and look at the polls. And the Republicans ended up getting wiped out, completely wiped out. Republicans in the 2006 congressional election lost not only the majority, they lost it by an enormous number of seats. Right? The Democrats took a 233 to 202 lead in the House. It was an astonishing result. The House results were disastrous for the Republicans. On net, the Democrats won 31 seats. The Republicans lost 30 seats. The Republicans went from a 30-seat House majority to a 31-seat minority in the House. It was a 61-seat swing in 2006. That wasn't entirely due to the Mark Foley scandal, but the Mark Foley scandal certainly did not help. Certainly did not help. So here's the problem. If you are perceived as the party that greenlights child molestation because you're attempting to avoid a vote for abortion, then you are going to be labeled as the party of evil. This is just what you're going to do. And this is the attack the media are taking. They're not going to acknowledge the moral complexity of the means versus ends discussion. They're going to say, You just can't vote for a child molester, which is something with which I basically agree. And then they are also going to say that even the people who vote for Roy Moore in order to stop Doug Jones, those people are basically letting child molestation go. So Katie Tur over at MSNBC is already making this case. Roy Moore is going to be an albatross around the neck of every Republican who doesn't vote to expel him in the Senate. Going to be an albatross around the neck of every Republican who doesn't answer questions about Roy Moore from now until the 2018 election. Here's Katie Tur making this case.
It is a brutal question, but one that requires asking in this political environment under this president. Which does this White House view as worse? An accused pedophile or a Democrat?
Okay, so there are a couple of problems with the way that she's putting this. Number one, you're assuming the guilt of Roy Moore. Okay, so I think he's guilty. But the other thing that you have to ask is, you know, what people will say is there are political dimensions to this, obviously. We're not just voting for an accused Democrat versus an alleged child molester. We're voting for the person and how he votes. You know, we're voting for his vote, basically. Again, the problem that I have is that the backlash against the Republicans is going to be so strong for this nationally. Forget about Alabama for a second. Nationally, okay, the backlash is strong enough that Roy Moore right now is running neck and neck in an Alabama Senate race where he should be winning by 20 points. Instead, there's a possibility, I don't think it's high, but I think there's a possibility he loses this race to Doug Jones, a hardcore Democrat in one of the reddest states in America. How do you think that's going to play across the country? You think the Democrats aren't going to put every Republican on television who won't say that they back who won't say that they distance themselves from an alleged child molester? John Heilemann is doing this routine too. This is the drum the media is going to beat. Now, you know, I'm going to play this and then I'm going to explain why I think that the Republican perspective on this, which is to kind of get their backs up, may be wrong here. So here he is.
What's worse, a child predator or a neo-Nazi? I'm not going to make a call on that. They're both pretty bad, but Donald Trump did not seem to find a problem with being on the side of the neo-Nazis, and apparently he doesn't find a problem in being on the side of the accused child predators either.
So this is the line that the Democrats are going to use. A lot of people are saying, well, Trump will stand up to them, right? Trump is standing up to them because he's saying that Moore is innocent. It doesn't matter whether he thinks Moore is innocent. It matters whether the public thinks Moore is innocent. The public overall does not think that Moore is innocent. Beyond that, Republicans are saying, well, if we don't stand and fight, what, are we just going to back down every time there's an allegation? No. You're going to back down when there are credible allegations. You're going to back down when there are credible allegations because it is not moral to stand by these people. Now, there is a school of thought that says on the right, well, the left does it too, so we'll be able to fight them to a draw. Sort of how there were allegations of sexual harassment against Trump during 2016, and so Trump wheeled and hit the Clintons, and so it all ended up coming out in the wash. Maybe we'll be able to do the same thing with the Democrats. There's a possibility here. If you look at how the Democrats are treating Al Franken, for example, they're treating Al Franken in basically the same way Republicans are treating Roy Moore. Here's a Democratic senator, I think it's Mary Hirono from Hawaii. She's talking about how we shouldn't be talking about Al Franken stepping down.
Do you think he should resign?
I think that is a distraction to be talking about resignation, because what's really at the bottom of this whole issue of sexual harassment is that it is pervasive in our culture, and Al will be going through the ethics probe. He'll be cooperating, and that's appropriate because people. So
it's a distraction, right? So a lot of Republicans are saying, listen, if the Democrats are going to play this off as a distraction, why can't the Republicans do the same thing? The Republicans can't do the same thing for two reasons. One, the media. Two, the real reason is that the allegations against Franken are bad. The allegations against Roy Moore are a lot worse. Okay, they are a lot worse. Attempted sexual molestation of a 14-year-old girl is a lot worse than groping an adult woman's breast while she is sleeping. Those are, I'm sorry, there two things can be bad and one can be much worse. And the ramifications for the Roy Moore thing are going to be worse for the Republicans, particularly because the Republicans hold themselves out as having a higher moral standard. This is the benefit of being a Democrat. When you say you have no moral standards, no one expects you to have moral standards. When you say as a Republican you have moral standards and that you stand for character in office, then people expect you to do that. I do think that there is a reckoning that's going to happen here, and I think the Republicans don't really expect it coming. When it comes, it's going to be very ugly. And so Republicans just better be aware that this could happen. Before I go any further, I want to say a quick thank you to our friends over at the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. So if you're a gun owner, can you say with 100% confidence that your family and your home are safe? What if you are forced to pull the trigger? Right? You don't know what's going to happen next. The police are going to show up at your house. They will arrest you if you have to pull the trigger. And then you need to know what to say, when to call a lawyer, and all the rest of it. Well, you're going to find all the answers in the USCCA's Complete Concealed Carry and Family Defense Guide. You can get it completely free, but you're about to miss your chance unless you do it right now. In that 164-page guide and free audiobook, you will learn how to detect attackers before they see you, the safest and most dangerous places to sit in a restaurant, how to responsibly own and store a gun, even if you have little kids, and more. But they're only offering this to my listeners for a few more days. If you want your free copy, you have to hurry. If you act fast, you're leaving it a bonus home defense checklist, which is awesome. Make sure that you stay safe. Simply head over to defendmyfamilynow.com right now. Get yours before it's gone. Defendmyfamilynow.com. Again, that's defendmyfamilynow.com. So back to the hypocrisy on both sides here. The Democrats are either shying away from saying Franken has to go. Franken will end up staying. I think Roy Moore will end up winning his race. I think Roy Moore will end up taking his seat. I think that Republicans don't have the stomach to actually expel Roy Moore from the Senate. I think they're afraid of taking off their own base, even though there would be very little risk to expelling Moore at that point, because then his seat would be filled by a Republican governor in Alabama. But they'll just say, listen, you guys want to expel Franken, we're not going to expel Moore, and everybody gets to sit. I think that's the most likely outcome here. Democrats are willing to get rid of the hypocrisy is on full display. Democrats are fully willing to get rid of people they no longer find valuable. So John Conyers, we talked about yesterday, the representative from Michigan, a Democrat, he has now been. It's now come out that there were sexual harassment settlements that were put into place because he was sexually harassing the help and sexually abusing the help. Jeffrey Toobin over on CNN, who's of the left, he says Conyers should go. Why? Because he's old. Not because he's guilty, because he's old.
He's 88 years old, and anybody who has spent 5 minutes in Congress watching him in action knows he's out of it. He is too old to be in Congress. He is not up to the job. And, you know, he is a walking advertisement for term limits. I know that the Supreme Court has said they are unconstitutional, but it is absolutely outrageous that that man in that condition is getting a salary from the taxpayers, to do this job.
It's not because he's guilty, you see. It's not because he is guilty. It is simply because he is old, right? Because he's useless to us. And this is the reality, unfortunately, of the situation. If Roy Moore were useless, the Republican Party would dump him over in a heartbeat. If Al Franken were useless, the Democrats would dump him over in the heartbeat. Conyers is useless, so they're dumping him over in a heartbeat. Nobody actually has a moral standard with regard to these things. But in terms of who is going to pay, the Republicans always end up paying a larger price for this sort of misconduct than Democrats do. They always do. That's just the way it goes. Why? For the same reason the Catholic Church paid a higher price for sexual misconduct than public school teachers do. Because when you hold yourself to a higher standard, then you are going to be held to that standard. I don't like that that's the way the world works, but that is the way the world of politics works. Now, the dumbest comment of yesterday was reserved for a woman named Emily Linden. I need to talk about this for a moment. Emily Linden is the founder of what's called the Unslut Project. So Emily Linden's Unslut Project is a, quote, movement against slut-shaming and sexual bullying. It's international. It involves all genders, all races, all ages, from all walks of life. So here's what she tweeted yesterday about all of the sexual harassment, sexual abuse stuff coming out. One of the things that we've been talking about on the show is how we can protect innocent men who are accused of sexual harassment or sexual assault. Right? What kind of evidentiary standard do we need? Here's what Emily Linden says, and I think that this is sort of the opposite of the David Horowitz approach, and in some ways similar to it. It's so extreme that it passes the bounds of rationality. Emily says, here's an unpopular opinion. I'm actually not at all concerned about innocent men losing their jobs over false sexual assault harassment allegations. Really? You're not concerned at all? There's a reason that that's an unpopular opinion. I mean, Jake Tapper went after Emily Linden. He said, did you fail your 7th grade book report on To Kill a Mockingbird? Right, I'm actually not at all concerned about innocent men losing their jobs over false sexual assault harassment allegations. And she went on to say that, you know, if a few innocent men get caught up in the proceedings, then I guess that's just the way that it's going to go. You know, this sort of insanity is going to become more and more common as we become more and more polarized as a society. Right? If we don't have any rules, then whatever is beneficial to your side is what you're going to do. If your side is the side of, you know, quote unquote anti-sexual harassment and sexual assault, then there's going to be a group of people who decide that it is important for even innocent people to go away in order to fight that battle. As soon as we start letting ends justify means, folks, the definition of morality is trying to balance the ends and the means. Suggesting that the ends always justify the means leads you to the logic of Emily Linden or David Horowitz. It leads you down some pretty dark paths with regard to what you are willing to do in order to get to an end point. And here's the thing, you rarely arrive at that end point. You rarely arrive at that end point anyway. So the idea that you can use any means to achieve your end, it usually doesn't work that way in real life. Okay, so I am going to do some things I like, things I hate, and then we're going to do the mailbag. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Birch Gold. So right now you're looking at the economy and you're thinking to yourself, the stock market looks good, but it may be inflated. What if we don't pass a tax cut in the House and Senate? What if there is no continuing economic boom? Or maybe you're just thinking that a lot of this is artificial inflation in terms of the real estate market, for example. Whatever you think the economy is going to do, you owe it to yourself to at least hedge your bets a little bit with some precious metals. That's why I work with the folks over at Birch Gold Group. Right now, thanks to a little-known IRS tax law, you can move your IRA or eligible 401k into an IRA backed by physical gold and silver. It's perfect for people who want to ensure their hard-earned retirement savings are protected from the ravages of inflation and any more stock market crashes. Birch Gold Group has a long-standing track record of continued success, thousands of satisfied clients, countless 5-star reviews, and A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Contact Birch Gold Group right now. You can request their free information kit on physical precious metals. It's a 16-page kit showing how gold and silver can protect your savings. Ask all your questions, make sure that you're comfortable, and then when you're ready to invest, talk to my friends over at birchgold.com/Ben. Again, that's birchgold.com/Ben. Use the /Ben so they know that we sent you. Okay, so things I like. So this is a very dark film. Just in time for Thanksgiving, I thought that I'd give you a depressing movie. So the depressing movie stars Jamie Lannister. I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name, but he's a good actor. I'm trying to remember who plays him. Now I have to look it up.
Nicholas Coster-Waldau.
Nicholas Coster-Waldau. Okay, Waldau. Okay. In any case, he's the guy who plays Jamie Lannister in Game of Thrones. Who knew the guy could act? He's actually a pretty good actor. So there's a movie that's out now called Shot Caller, and it's about a guy who is a stockbroker who's in a DUI, and the DUI ends in manslaughter. So he ends up getting somebody killed in a DUI. DUI manslaughter comes with some hard time. And it's basically about how this guy gets sucked into the maw of the prison culture, and how prisons, especially in places like California, because it's in California, how prisons are essentially run by the gangs. How what guards often say is that they control the locks and they control the doors, but the gangs control the actual prison. And so it's about this guy's evolution from stockbroker into a hardcore prison inmate, essentially. Just the sort of uplifting, cheery thing that you'd want right before Thanksgiving. Now, here's a little bit of the preview. It is a well-made film.
I honestly don't think that baseball constitutes a date night.
But there are dugout club seats on that third base. It's romantic and they're free, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. All right. I need the light.
I killed Tom.
It's an accident. People don't go away for accidents.
Look, man, I know you're scared. But you need to know this. They'll be with the big boys. So you gotta stand up for yourself. Because once you're marked in there, move! It will never end.
So it's the people who made Drive and Nightcrawler.
Not looking for trouble.
The fact is, a place like this forces us to become warriors or victims.
It's got a bunch of kind of bit actors who are well known for other parts. So the Punisher is in it.
You'll get your hands
the film is well made. It's very creepy. It's pretty scary, and it does give you a good idea of what goes on in these prisons. It's pretty frightening stuff. Anyway, the movie's called Shot Caller. Not exactly family friendly. But you can check it out on Netflix. I believe it's available. Okay, or Amazon Prime. It's on Amazon Prime. Okay, other things that I like. This is the single best, I have to show you this. This is the single best political segue in history. It is spectacular. This happened on Australian news, and there's a guy who's asked about same-sex marriage, and he's anti-same-sex marriage, and so what he says is, we have higher priorities. Watch the segue here. It is magnificent.
Observation on the same-sex marriage debate from Bob Catter.
I mean, people are entitled to their sexual proclivities, I mean, let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom as far as I'm concerned, But I ain't spending any time on it because in the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
So we should put the whole country on hold until we sort out
that is a spectacular segue. That is a spectacular segue. No matter where you stand on same-sex marriage, there's nothing better than people let 1,000 flowers bloom, do whatever you want to do in your bedroom. But I'm not going to spend time on it because every 3 months, one person is mauled by a crocodile. Just spectacular stuff. Well done, random guy from Australia. That's a strong argument. Okay, time for a thing that I hate. So today's thing that I hate, Elizabeth Warren is going around making the rounds. She wants to run for president. She is one of the least likable human beings on planet Earth. I know this because I know Elizabeth Warren. My first experience with Elizabeth Warren, she's a professor at Harvard Law School at the time. I met her at the top of the W Hotel for a reception for incoming Harvard Law students. They're trying to recruit people. And she immediately asked me a nasty question about Rush Limbaugh. That's who Elizabeth Warren is. So now she's very upset because Donald Trump calls her Pocahontas. The reason he calls her Pocahontas is because apparently she got her job at Harvard Law, at least in part, by claiming Native American ancestry. There is no evidence whatsoever she has any Native American ancestry. When asked the evidence for this, she presented a cookbook that she'd written a recipe for called Pow Wow Chow. I am not joking about this. And in that cookbook, she gave a recipe for crab bisque, which is not a common, as far as I'm aware, not a common recipe for the Sioux people in Oklahoma, which is where she's from. In any case, she now says that Trump is a racist for calling her Pocahontas. She's not a racist for usurping Native American culture and using it to get ahead. Trump is a racist for calling her Pocahontas. I wish that Trump would use her proper name. It's Pocahontas, right? Not Pocahontas, Pocahontas. In any case, here it is.
He tweeted this. He said, Pocahontas just stated that the Democrats, led by the legendary crooked Hillary Clinton, rigged the primaries. Let's go, FBI and Justice Department. That must have felt good. The president, you agreed on something. Because Jake Tapper did ask you in an interview, do you think that the primaries were rigged? And you said yes.
So let's do both halves. The first half, Donald Trump thinks if he's going to start every one of these tweets to me with some kind of racist slur here,
that is a racist slur,
that he's going to shut me up. It didn't work in the past. It's not going to work in the future.
Yeah, she's standing up. Whoa, bravery. Look at that bravery. I mean, she's brave to wear that jacket, but look at the bravery there. Wow. The redcoats are coming, man. Okay, the level of bravery required to say that somebody is, that's a racist slur. It's not a racist slur. He's making fun of you for being a racist, for saying that you're Native American when you are not, Elizabeth Warren. Oh, so tiresome. Okay, so we're going to do the mailbag. But if you want to be part of the mailbag, then you need to subscribe right now, like right this very second. Because if you want your questions answered, you have to be a subscriber to Daily Wire. $9.99 a month gets you a subscription to Daily Wire. It gets you the rest of today's show live on video and every day's show live on video. It gets you the rest of Michael Knowles' show live on video, the rest of Andrew Klavan's show live on video. Be part of all of our mailbags. Get discounts at the soon-to-happen Shapiro store. Yes, it's really going to happen, believe me. Okay, believe me. Also, for $99 a year, you can get that, plus this, the very greatest in all beverage vessels, the Leftist Tears hot or cold tumbler. Far superior to any other mug or tumbler on the market. It is the greatest vessel that you will ever put liquid into. It is spectacular in every sense of the word. So you can get all that for $99 a year, which is cheaper than the monthly subscription. Also, if you just want to listen later, please subscribe over at YouTube or SoundCloud or iTunes. Please hit subscribe and make sure that you also leave us a review. That helps with the rankings at places like iTunes as well. We are the largest, fastest growing conservative podcast in the nation.